and tangible way. And we believe that we can do that. So I'm going to turn it over for our talk back. If we could actually just have our storytellers literally just turn around with your chairs and face our community of folks. And I'm going to pass it off to a very dear colleague of mine, somebody who is, again, the ED, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. He's also the tallest ED in the state of, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But he's also a very good friend of mine who I cherish and for his support of the EMOC initiative. Chad Deon Lassiter, y'all.
Thank you, Brother Gabe. I want to say, let's also, and this is genuine and authentic, let's give it up for Gabe, too. And the reason why I say that is because Gabe is a human being that actually lives this every day. He's been doing a lot of work around police, the anthology of police brutality in the city of Philadelphia and New York for years. And I remember when I was in grad school and I saw a lot of stuff that Gabe was doing, I was out there right with him, and then I said as a sidebar, "Hey Gabe, are the police going to arrest us?" And Gabe said, "Yeah, they're going to arrest us." I said, "I'm going back up to North Philly." But I did want to say before we get started that one of the recommendations I think for all of the individuals who are here, including the police, is a great book called The Black and the Blue. A cop reveals the crimes, racism, and injustice in America's law enforcement. Once again, the name of that book is The Black and the Blue. A cop reveals the crimes, racism, and injustice in America's law enforcement. And it's by a gentleman by the name of Matthew Horace, who currently is a CNN analyst. Really quick, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, we're the top civil rights enforcing agency in the entire Commonwealth. We have regional offices in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Pennsylvania. Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia. It's been a long day. Just got off a plane yesterday from Pittsburgh. So an incident like Starbucks would fall under us. Okay, Anton Rose, who was in Pittsburgh and got killed by the police, and the police officer there got off with impunity, that would fall under us to make sure that the racial incident and the racial unrest would not happen. So those type of situations come to us. A young African-American male got tased by the police in Lancaster, PA. That fell underneath us. We have something called the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act that gives us prosecutorial powers, provisional powers under investigatory hearing 8.1, and we can call for investigations. And so lastly, the 5 women who were in Grandview, golfing while black, that's in our office. We're doing a full report. So Monday through Sunday, we're out here making sure that communities feel safe. We do anti-bias training with the ADL, with police departments, and the new initiative that we're working on is asking for we're going to be the central repository for all of the police all of the police departments in the Commonwealth to give us their policies and procedures so that we can hold them accountable when incidents of police brutality happen. So it's not about some good cops, some not good, so good cops. We want the police officers to see the humanity of black and brown people every single day. So with that being said, one of the questions that, and this is very interactive because we go to the audience as well. And you heard Lisa earlier talk about this notion of parenting around the talk and how it's an ongoing dialogue. So our first question for Lisa is, why is the talk an ongoing dialogue?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing dialogue because everything changes around them. Our children are changing, their environments can change, just everything. It's life experiences and having to make sure that it's front of mind at all times. It's not something that they can kind of, there's so many issues that we have to deal with here. First of all, we're dealing with young people whose brains are not even fully developed. Let's go there. And then we live in a society where it's all either or. There's no and, right? Like I live out in Lansdowne and I got one of those signs, right? This home is full of this love and people are people and da-da-da-da-da-da. But why can't I have, and I respect the police. Like, why can't it be inclusive of all of those things? And so I think that that's why the talk has to continue, because life isn't either or. We all live in the and so I think that our children have to be engaged in that dialogue on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Lisa. The next question is for Mr. and Edwin. Who gave you the talk, And how old were you when the talk occurred? The back part of that is, what was your emotional reaction to the talk?
What's interesting is the talk I had was with the cop. When he talked about my background. I went away at 16. I ended up serving 8.5 years in prison. I've been home 21 years now. But I've never had that talk at all. So pretty much for me it's kind of like I wish I did, but unfortunately I didn't. So, and this is where we are today.
I never had to talk either. You know, I was raised between my mom and my godmother, raised between two women. And like I said, the school I went to, even though I was in the projects and it was kind of rough, I went to school in Old City. I went to McCall at 6th and Spruce. So it's kind of like she was more concerned about racism than police. Like that wasn't the thing. It was like once you leave 13th and Fitzwater and you walk down South Street and you bang that left and you're going into this world with this International House of Pancakes, elementary, middle school you go to. Like, you know, don't let the white people snatch you and put you in a van and, you know, all that kind of stuff. She was, when she watched a lot of, she read a lot of Stephen King and Alfred Hitchcock, and she was paranoid about the white people. But it wasn't the cops. It just, that wasn't the thing because I didn't have a whole lot of experience. It just what, and some of the stuff that we've talked about, you know, the story I told you earlier, I was, God, in my 30s before I told my mother some of this. She was like, what? Where was I at? Why didn't I? Because they see, look at you. You know what I mean? This is why, and this is what we have to be aware of too, like having boys and talking and being like, one thing I've learned about being a parent is kind of like calm down, like chill, because I don't want her to be like, I'm not telling him because he's going to go off the hook and make it. So you kind of, that's the lesson in all of this. When I have to talk, is like, you know, so what did the cop say to you? Okay. Like in here, it's like, you know, but you gotta like, you don't want your kids not coming to you talking about stuff that happened. But, you know, like it never really was the cop talk. Never really had it.
Thank you. This next question is for Lee and Lisa. What does it say about our society when we have to introduce concepts like the talk as mere survival strategies in a sometimes hostile world?
Yeah, it's really upsetting because you do have to. I think sometimes we can be idealistic and say, you know, I wish we didn't have to do this. But then as parents, we say, but this is something that I have to do. And so I think all of us have a social justice aspect to ourselves. We want to change society. At the end of the day, as parents, we also want to protect our kids. And so I think that you can play at this level, but at the end of the day, you also need to make sure you take care of your kids, and so that's why you have those conversations, because ultimately the most important thing is, are they safe? And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think any of us wish we had to have these conversations, but we do because we know we have to. So however uncomfortable it is over pizza, you have the conversation, and you hope that it works.
But in addition to the talk, I think that we have to have other types of conversations, and we have to acknowledge other things that because of the world we live in now, I believe that our kids are traumatized on a level that I may never understand. And that's without having experienced maybe personal, like hands-on trauma, just the world that they're living in, like having to manage, what do you call that, the thing they do in schools when an active shooter thing, like those drills. Like I had a fire drill. That's what I dealt with. Now they have fire drills and active shooter drills. And then we're going to add on the talk. So now I also have a talk about how to process and have a practice to deal with this type of stress and trauma. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that it doesn't matter where you live or if you've been personally touched by, everyone we're dealing with is traumatized. And so I think that it says that things have gotten out of control, period. And I have very little power to put things back in control, but I do have the power to arm my children and the young people around them as much as I can to have certain practices that will help them keep their minds right. Mindfulness techniques, learning how to take deep breaths. Like Mr. said, how he has to regulate his conversation so that his rage isn't out, so that he's not projecting that fear and that anger onto his daughter. Those are things that we have to add in addition to the talk. Edwin looking at his son in his eyes and saying on a regular basis, whatever land your feet are standing on is a good land. Those are just as relevant as the talk.
So we're going to throw another question out, and then we'll go to the audience. And I think it was really advantageous, Mister, that you expanded it beyond this the either or, but it was both and, that we also are living in a society where we have to keep in prayer, thoughts, and reflections and guard it around our daughters as well. The whole aspect of Sandra Bland, say her name. And so when we're looking at this question, this is for Mr. and this is also for Edwin, with your son present in the context of what you talked about. What is the psychological trauma for a parent who gives the talk, yet still their child ends up dead or is brutalized in some capacity at the hands of state violence? I'm gonna say that again, because it doesn't just have to be our child. Like the vicarious traumatization sometimes is, we don't know Mike Brown, we didn't know Alton Sterling and others, but these are still individuals who make up an aspect of our community. So this question, once again, and Lisa really got us started with this, is what is the psychological trauma for a parent who gives the talk, yet and still their child ends up dead or is brutalized in some capacity at the hands of state violence?
That's heavy. My daughter is a bit of a flower child. She's like very sensitive and very emotional. So it's like, you know, sometimes it's walking on eggshells. When you have a kid like that, when she's just like, Dad, like everything is not race, everything is not about everybody. And I'm just like, but it is. You are just like Punky Brewster or somebody. Like she really, I'm just like, she just came up different. You know what I mean? We, all of us, I think, can agree. Our kids came up way different than how we came up, and seeing stuff. I was a police reporter for 2 years, so to talk about like the like directly, that was my job, to interview people every day who lost somebody. Sometimes yellow tape is fresh, you know, the sheet is over the, and I'm just the first person coming and have to talk to this person in this extreme grief. And I just remember just thinking like wow, you know, and some of them, you know, were killed by police. You know, some people were shot in the street, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. When you're interviewing a parent that probably, you know, a lot of these people did all of the right things. They lined it up. You're going to the prep school. You're going to do this. You're going to play basketball. You're going to do, like you do all, and that's the heartbreaking stuff. Like when you go in somebody's house and you just wall of trophies, wall of plaques, wall of ribbons, and it's just like, okay, I see what this is. Like, I know who this kid is. I know what this is. When you walk in, we all know those kids. When you walk in and it's like, yo, you've been doing a wonderful job as a parent, and now it's just over. And that was before I had a daughter, when I was a police reporter. So I think it would have been a little bit different. It was just me going in and, you know, dealing with the trauma of it every day. Like every day. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's at the hands of the police or just somebody getting shot down in the street. It's extremely traumatic. I think we're all walking around with PTSD a little bit. You know what I mean? A little bit or a lot. I think we really are. And I just, you know, sometimes I don't have the answers. But when I look at her, I just try to, like I said, remain calm and say, listen, you don't want to have these conversations because you just want to see the best in everybody. But, you know, that's just not what it is. That's just not what it is. Sometimes, you know, there are evil people in the world. Sometimes they are out of uniform and sometimes they're in uniform. And you just have to deal with it.
The world's a scary place all the way around once you become a parent. The stress levels are all time. Once they walk out the door, once they start being on their own, everything goes through your mind. Not only just for my I have 4 sons, but not only just for my sons, I'm also a dean now at a school. So those kids are mine. I'm not just a dean. They are mine. They belong to me while they're there. I also work at a rec center with Mr. Washington and Waterloo Rec Center, and those kids they belong to us. So it's not just with my kids, but trauma goes on both sides. Everyone's traumatized, and what I mean by that is on law enforcement side and the residents. Especially for our young folks, you have a young person. The only thing he's been exposed to maybe his dad being drug off by the police, not understanding why, or maybe even getting smacked around. And then you have a police officer who means well, who's actually being verbally abused, saying, I'm just here to serve. And it goes both ways. It's like everyone is traumatized. Like, how do we implement some type of peace? How do we say, hey, we need to get this together and have this conversation what we're having now? One of the things I can say working at Waterloo Playground, when I first started inviting some of my police officer friends to the playground, at first the kids didn't know they were cops. They were playing basketball with cops. Right? Then after that, one of the cops showed up in his uniform, and it was like, remember in school they would say, draw what's wrong with this picture? It was kind of like when he popped up, everybody was looking at my friend in his uniform. Why is this cop here? From kids to senior citizens, everybody wanted to know, why is he in here? Why is he standing there? But he was consistent, coming around, getting to know the young folks, getting to know who they are, and after a while, now when he come around, there's nothing new. Oh, that's just Officer such and such. That's who he is. But what is not fair is when you have an officer who put work into that community, you have another officer come mess it up for that officer. It takes one officer to mess it up. I complained about certain drug dealing in the neighborhood. Now, folks know me as another officer that's here with my son. She's back here. She runs the Power Center, Officer Jessica. Raise your hand. We have officers, folks know me, and Eddie Piazzo. Matter of fact, I just want to say, we're here with some legends. I'm not going to lie. The Lassiter, from Harrell, there's so many folks. When I look around, I'm one of those, I'm in awe because I'm a fan of so many people here. And this is the reason why we do this. But just want to say, folks that do know me, I do get aggressive when it comes to taking back certain neighborhoods in my community. This is my playground. You're not going to sell drugs, and I'm going to push. But one day I was like, no, I don't want to go that far anymore. We got it popping here. Me and Washington, we came a long way. We got kids here. We got a good time. Somebody came out of jail, decided, I don't want to do good. I want my corner back. And I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to get into it with this dude. Told a couple police officers, can you help us out? No problem. They knew what to do, come around, know how to push him out. And we was on a good thing. And one day, they told the wrong officers to push these guys out. It looked like they didn't even want to be down there. They got out there, started grabbing these young guys, slamming them on the floor, throwing them up on the car, literally like breaking their heads on the window. And then they said, that guy over there told us that he don't want you here. Right? Put me on the spot. Next morning, I'm walking into the playground. I could get shot. One of the young guys was like, why would you do that to us? I'm like, wow. So what I'm trying to get at is like, I don't know what happened. Those officers were wrong, but it's a cycle all the way around where everyone's traumatized. And it's just about, again, being consistent. Okay, we got to start from scratch again to build this back up again.
We're going to go to the audience. One of the beautiful things about EMOC is that we have two types of people that typically sit in our audiences. People who volunteer and people who we just hand the mic to. So it's still a safe space. And we see a lot of mothers sitting next to young men. And so we're going to start with this mother right here who did not raise her hand. But once again, two types of volunteers. We will volunteer you. Or you can just raise your hand. But once again, it's a safe space. And she's nodding her head in affirmation that she's okay with that. This is, in fact, a beloved community. One of the things that we've been able to create with the synergy under the leadership of Roland Land, Jamie Brunson, and Gabe Bryant, and Anthony McLaughlin is these type of venues. So people feel free to say, so I'm going to come to you, Mom, and then I'm going to come to this mother right here. And then I'm going to come to this mother right here. Thank you for raising your hands. And so our question is, for you to tell us how old this young man is, and if in fact he's your son, and if you had to give the talk, and take us through how that is. And then, young man, if you want to speak, this is a safe environment too. We'll give you a couple of chips as an incentive for you to do so. But we're going to pass this over to you, Mom.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to first say thank you to Ema. So I thought I had the talk. I thought I did well. I have an 18-year-old at DePaul in Chicago who's a flower child. There is no evil in the world. And then I have a 14-year-old, sorry, just had a birthday, sorry, 14 in September, who looks like he's 19, who is taller than his 18-year-old brother, 14-year-old in a 13-and-a-half men's shoe. So I get nervous sending my baby, who looks like an adult, out into the world. And so I thought I had the talk. You know, I had an 18-year-old, I've done this before, I'm going to do it again. It wasn't until this questionnaire, the last question on here was, do you have a male of color in your home who have had an exchange? And I'm thinking I know the answer to that. No, my boys are fine. Thank God. Something said pause. Show him the question. I'm not a good mom. I'm sitting here shaking in my pants when he told me, yes, Mom, I have had an exchange. I'm ready to cry. I'm ready to scream. I'm ready to jump up and down. What do you mean? So I thank you all. And if we have a chance to come back around, what advice do you guys have? I'm a mom, single mom. His father has passed, gone. And I try to surround him around positive males as much as I possibly can. But what advice do you guys have for single moms that we can get that message? A lot of times it is, oh, that's just mom talking. That's a mom talk. So I'm not really listening. But it's different when it's sometimes the same message coming from somewhere else and coming from outside. So experience, great, love it, positive, will be again. 14-year-old, and do you want to share anything?
You ready? Hi, my name is Nadira Branch, and this is my son Amin Branch. He's a little embarrassed. We have not had the talk, and my question is, what is the talk, and for him, and what tips can you offer him? So we talked about the talk, but can we talk the actual talk? Yeah, yeah, thank you.
So that's great. We're going to come to one of our esteemed civil rights lawyers who can break that down, and then we'll come to him after we come to Rick. Rick, why don't you break down for a lot of people? You didn't know I was coming to you, but that's what we do.
First, I'm glad to be here. You know, as I was listening, it's two things that happened to me growing up in Strawberry Mansion. And I had to talk with a police officer by the name of Warren L. Williams about 35 years ago. He was our role model. But now I can fast forward to here we are, 2019. Give you an example. Me and my wife was driving to Canada. We were going to the falls. And while driving on the road, we about 20 minutes away from Niagara Falls, going on one road, and on the opposite side of the street, a police officer came that way. And I looked over at him, and I told my wife, I said, he's going to turn around and come get us. Now, my wife has never been exposed to driving while black. And I tell you, I was so trained growing up in North Philly how to handle myself when the police stopped you. So when the guy pulled over, Chad, I was, like he mentioned, music off, all that, hands up, wallet already out. And he asked me, where are you going? I said, sir, me and my wife, we're on vacation. We're going to Niagara Falls. And when he said, just drive slow, as he drove away, I looked at my wife, she was in tears. My wife was traumatized by that. So now I'll take another experience with the talk. I was doing some work with the Philadelphia Police Department, the Heads Up program. What is the police officer here? The Heads Up program. and I had police identification in my pocket. On the dashboard of my vehicle, it says official police business. I'm driving, music up. They hit me. I'm in South Philly, by the way. They stopped me. I'm by myself. I turn the music down, and the typical behavior. Both cops get out. One go to the opposite side of my car, hand on his weapon. And the other guy comes to the car, and I just let the window down. It's a funny story, but it's a real story. I let the window down, and I said, "Sir, what's the problem?" Of course, he asked me driver's license registration. Meanwhile, I look over at the other guy. He's just anticipating me. He's just waiting. And I'm traumatized, but I'm nervous. But they don't know I'm going to go do some work for the police. So the guy, I give him my driver's license and registration, and he looks in the front of my window. And he sees official police business. He said, "You police officer?" I said, "No, sir." I said, "I'm on my way to a school to do a program with the commissioner." He tells the other guy, hold up. And it was so funny. And the story of this is, he said, "How far are you away?" I said, "I'm 10 blocks away and you're holding me up." He said, "Well, this is what we want you to do. We're going to get in front of you and you just follow us." So, that's my police story. Yeah.
Brother Riley, could you, as a civil rights icon and lawyer, just break down briefly for this mother and other mothers just what the talk is, and then some strategies, and then we'll open it up to hearing from this mother, and then we have a series of other questions for the audience as well. Yes.
Can we also ask one of the officers
Certainly.
what the talk is?
Certainly, yeah, we have some questions for them. Oh, we have a lot of questions for them.
Thanks, Chad. So I wasn't expecting to get on the mic either, and I have a 8-year-old son who I've not yet had to talk with, so it'll be my first time having to talk, and I'm still debating of when that talk should happen, because it seems that when he was born, I definitely didn't think I'd have to be thinking about it when he was 7 or 6, but Tamir Rice, obviously, I do have to think about that now. As my role as a civil rights lawyer, I can tell you that just what everyone has said already is that you're encountering an officer who also is thinking about getting home safely. So if you think about it from that standpoint, and if you think about it from the standpoint that you want to get home safely, what's the best way for that to happen? Now, obviously, younger children, it may not be in an automobile situation. It's just going to be on the street interacting with them. But one mistake that I see people make, and especially when I'm handling civil rights cases, is that we tend to believe that if we're being treated wrongly, that somehow bringing that to the attention of the officer right then and there is going to resolve it. It usually is not. Usually if you're in a bad situation, getting upset and telling the officer that you can't treat me this way is not going to go that way for you. And we have a saying like, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Would you rather be right or would you rather be alive? And that's what we got to think about. Like, what can I say to diffuse the situation, even though this guy is overreacting? What's going to be best for me? Because I can get out of this. I can try to talk my way out of this. I can try to yell and say you're not right. But he's got the power to put me in handcuffs and put me in a jail cell until we can work this thing out. No matter how many degrees I have, no matter who I know, right here now, he's got more power than I do. And what am I going to do with that? I want to get to a point where I can call someone and try to resolve this later. And I'm going to have a better chance of doing that if I don't give him a reason to say I'm resisting arrest, resisting an order, even if I don't believe that it's a fair order to do. So in talking about having that talk, you want to think about it, and it is angry. It does make me angry, and it makes people, in these situations, we shouldn't have to put him at ease if he's or she is not acting in a fair way. It shouldn't be my job to say I'm gonna lower myself, or I'm gonna bring myself to a point where I've got to kind of kowtow to you. But again, where do I want to be at the end of the day? Do I want to be in a jail cell, or worse? Do I want to be shot, or do I want to have the chance to resolve this in a fair on a fair playing field? Because right now it's not a fair playing field. He's got the gun. He's got the handcuffs, and I've got to get home safely. So that talk has got to be about what can I do in order to make sure that that can happen. And a lot of times that means saying, listen, yes, sir, I hear what you're saying. I will follow your orders. And in your mind, you can just be like, wait till I get home. You know, I'm calling so-and-so. I'm calling, you know, ABC News, and they're going to come out and do the story, you know, and whatever you got to do, that's fine, but you got to get home first in order to do that.
So as we get ready to come over to our officers, I wanted to give this mother an opportunity to maybe unpackage, if you had to give the talk to your youngster, what did that look like? And we also want to hear from youngsters. You know, we want to hear, yeah, we can hear from you, but let's give it to this mom. And then what we'll do is we'll come over to our officers, and then we have a series of other questions, and we want to keep the energy up. Here you go, Mom.
Hello, this is my son, and he's 16 years old, and I have not had the talk with him. He's pretty much has a sheltered life, and like I keep him involved in activities. I try to keep him around positive people, and I ultimately know anything could happen at any time, but at the same time, I kind of think that if you're doing the right things and are at the right place, you know, you'll be okay. But like I teach them to be respectful to everybody, not just the police. So, you know, just being here will let us start the dialogue. So that's pretty much.
Just a quick note, you know, one of the things that we hear often, and I've had a lot of meetings with parents and guardians who may be living in environments that, you know, on the outside may not be as violent, right? May not be, you know, low income or what have you, may not be incidents of high police violence. But what I always offer is this. At some point, the young man is going to probably be going to college, particularly if he's going to a predominantly white institution. He's going to be 18, 19, 20 years of age, and he may find himself in a situation, for instance, in the middle of Pennsylvania, where you choose the state, with individuals who aren't familiar with a 6'5" 17-year-old to 18-year-old. Our parties always get stopped before their parties. If you understand what I mean by that. When myself and Chad and Mr. and Edwin are out by ourselves, just going to class, we're the ones being looked at, not them. And so the need for the talk is still important regardless of what space we're in now, because at a certain point in time, once they hit 18, and perhaps if they're on a college campus, I really want to also realize this whole college question has to be a part of it. Even when they leave your household, but you know, if they're on college campuses and they're dealing with the racism that we see every day, every year, we read about some swastika on the campus, blackface in campus, right? And so white supremacy we know is endemic, racism is endemic, and so to figure out ways to combat it, but also equip them with the reality that they'll see every day.
Thank you, Gabe. We're going to come over to the officer. Come up here for a minute, young man. Yeah, you. You don't have to talk. Yeah. Yeah, but we're going to go to the officers. We got it, Jamie. We're going to get to him. Come over here right now. Just stand next to me. Nothing bad. Because turn around. Because what Gabe was talking about in Cleveland, Ohio, and the psyche of those police officers, not all police officers, they saw Tamir Rice with a water gun. They saw the water gun as a real gun. And they saw a 12-year-old, I believe, Gabe, as a 21-year-old. So not attacking anything you said, Mom, but this is a community where that talk is essential because it can actually cost you your life by not having the talk, because the society doesn't see them like you do. The society oftentimes does not see them as cherishing, polite young men, loving young men, my baby, my man, or whatever the case may be. And in the psyche of some police officers, they see us as threatening. So I just wanted to say, when we look at him, we see him as your son or things of that nature, or our young, energetic young man right there in the red, who we're going to give an opportunity to speak to. But we have to look at that. We have to be able to unpackage that. So, Gabe, I'm glad you mentioned that. No matter whether or not we go to the Shipley or the Baldwin School, or we go to Gratz High School, we go to Frankfurt High School, it's not us per se. So we can do all the things. We say, why are they running from the police? But we never ask the question, well, why are some of the police patrolling while racist? So we have to unpackage that. Thank you, young man. So as we come over to our officers, yeah, mister, that's right, yeah. As we come over to our officers, one question that we want to generate to you all is, have you ever had someone in your families give you the talk? And then how did that look? And then the second part of the question is, how can we interrupt some of the tension that happens during police stops? Sometimes the police narrative, this is a lot, sometimes the police narrative is, oh, it was his hypermasculinity. But then a lot of times our narrative is, to what Rick said, why is it that that police officer is on that other side ready? Like, what's the anxiousness to run in? And then there's some other questions, but the first question that we'll lobby to you is the question of, are you familiar with the talk? Who gave you the talk? And if your fathers, who happen to also be officers, have you given that talk?
I don't need the mic. I'm gonna just jump right in. So, I've never had to talk. I've had to talk with my sons because I have a 21-year-old who's in college, and just some personal experience. I'm out with his mother. She moved in Lower Marion, and that's where my son lives. So he calls me he's age 16. He called me and said, "Dad, can you buy me a BB gun?" And my first thoughts was, no, you will get killed. And I told him that. And I said, I will not be responsible for you playing with a BB gun in Lower Marion and get killed by a police officer. The next thing is, I had a traumatizing experience when I was a kid. I was 16 years old. I was staying on the corner. I probably shouldn't have been. But I wasn't doing that, and I was hanging out. I think it was a beautiful day. Highway cops pull up. Anybody know who highway cops are? They're allegedly the baddest cops in the city. Right? So, they asked me my name. And my full name is George G. I told the cop my name, and he said I was lying. He tried to slap me. But I always can fight a little bit. So I made him miss, and it made him mad. So he tried to slap me again. He tried to slap me again. And he finally started connecting. Bust my nose a little bit, bust my lip a little bit. And that trauma that I took that day, I said I'm gonna do something different. I didn't start hating cops. I said I'm gonna become one and I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna become a cop and I'm gonna change it. And that's how I dealt with my trauma. I had an incident about 3 weeks ago. I pulled a young man over. He ran the light. When I get to the car, he has his hands through the steering wheel, his keys on the dashboard, and his head down. I walked up to the car. I said, "Young man, what are you doing? You just ran the light. What are you doing?" So, just being honest, my first thoughts was, stop being a drama queen, right? But I had to realize the social climate that we in. So I dialed it back and I told him, I said, I want you to forget everything you've seen on social media. I want you to forget all that right now. This is about me and you and nobody else and no other situation. Our situation is going to be different. I said, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. You don't understand. You ran that light. Somebody could have, and it was early in the morning. Somebody could have been taking their kids to school. You could have hurt somebody. Sit up, look me in the eye, and man to man, we're gonna do this like gentlemen. He felt comfortable. I didn't even give him a ticket. I told him to be careful, and I put him on his way. So now, as a police officer, I had to ease that tension. Because if I didn't, it could have escalated. I tried my best as a police officer. I can't speak for nobody else to know the difference when someone's trying to hurt me, when someone's trying to just get away. the difference between somebody fighting you and somebody trying to get away from you. A lot of officers can't differentiate, but I can. I know when somebody's trying to hurt me, or when somebody's just trying to get away from me, or somebody's just running because they're scared. I literally came in contact with young men who didn't do anything, they just ran from me because they were scared. I chase them, I catch them, I'm out of breath, I'm like, yo, why you running? What you got on you? I'm thinking he got something on him, and he just said, I was scared. So he went through all that because you were scared instead of just talking to me and engaging with me. And it's just, the way it goes is a vicious cycle. But I can say, we've had training to help us deal with these issues. Don't get me wrong, this is not going to happen overnight, but we are working towards it. I hope that answered one or two of your questions.
First, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Officer Mitchell, Community Relations Officer here in the 12th District. I was writing a lot of notes down. Born and raised right here in Southwest all my life. The talk. I was not given the talk. And coming from a police family background, my father was a police officer for 30-some years. My sister was a police officer. And my mom was a teacher. So they never had, I guess back in the day, we didn't have the talk wasn't, I'm not gonna say it wasn't needed, but it wasn't as bad as it is now with the brutality and everything that's going all over our country. Wish I had the talk. I had a story. I went to Cheney University. Driving up there, driving to Cheney, you have to go through a lot of areas, elements. Yeah. Now I'm 18, 19 years old. Honor student, doing good. Mom bought a car for me. I'm driving back and forth to Cheney. My mom taught at Cheney, so I'm feeling good. I'm going back and forth, and I'm on my way home to my job. At the time, I worked at a radio station, Black Rain, WHAT. And so I'm thinking, I know all the important people. I'm interviewing the mayor, I'm interviewing the police commissioners and all this, and I'm driving back, got my little emblem in the car. I'm thinking I'm not gonna be stopped. I run it was the red light, it was yellow. We didn't have the cameras where they do the red stop light, but it was yellow and I was trying to hurry up and make it so I can get to work. Officers pulled me over, out the car, automatically. You're 17, I'm 17, you don't own this car, get out the car, car's not in your name, the whole thing. I had a couple of other classmates with me that were going back to Philly. We're on the car, it's like 98 degrees outside. We're stretched out all around the car. They're going through it, they're ripping our book bags apart. Asked me about the emblem, did you steal it? The whole thing, and I never mentioned that my father was a cop just yet because I didn't have the talk. Didn't know that what I was supposed to do when the officers approach us. First time getting pulled over, I'm 17, and I'm like, well, what do we do? I know I ran the light, but it was yellow. There was another car behind me, but I got stopped. So they're making phone calls, they're doing everything, and I'm trying to tell them, I just had the police commissioner on the radio station. I'm Mary Mason's producer. What's the problem? They don't care. We're in the back of the cop car now. We were Delco. They take us back to the station. The car is still sitting on, what was this, Westchester Pike, one of those. I don't know where it is. They finally decided to let us go about 2 hours later. I'm calling my mom and dad, but back then, we didn't have cell phones. So dad's not answering the phone. He doesn't have a pager. He's at work. So they let us sit there for hours, finally decided to let us go. That's it. They let us go. They don't tell us where our car is. They don't tell us anything. I'm trying to figure out how to get home. I'm catching the bus. I end up having to go all the way back to Cheney. Get up to Cheney, by then it's dark. The school is closed. I don't stay on campus, so I don't know who I'm talking to. Long story short, I finally had to call somebody to get home, but well, I'm rambling now. What else did I write? Oh, what I wrote down about being young with us. A lot of it starts at home with the don't do that or we'll call the cops. And a lot of the kids that we have now, before we get to do the talk, they already have in their mind embedded that when the office comes, it's bad. It might be a good thing. We save a lot of lives out here as well. But once we start overall, oh, don't do that. Put your clothes away or do this, or I'm calling the cops. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 7. My youngest just turned 5 last month. One day I'm in full uniform and she's like, the cops are here. Ooh, who did it? And I'm like, I'm your father. Like, where did you get this from that the cops did something wrong? I'm coming home to bring gifts and things for your birthday. Why am I getting yelled at? I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to talking to a lot of people. Thank you. So, like my partner G, we've been on for over 14 years. I've taken this job to give back to the community and try to help the community as much as we can. We have a lot of things set up for young people. We cater to the young people in the community. I have a program that I started about 5 years ago before I even became into community relations. It's called Cops and Kids, where we bridge the gap with the children and community. He left. So I do the program with the Head Start. We do things like the DARE program back in the day. I go to the schools and we teach them how to play chess, how to, I DJ on the side, so I teach them how to DJ. Everybody now raps, so I want to show the young people there's more than just being a rapper, that you can actually learn and make money on the other sides of things. Then I do things like movie night, soliciting. We do a movie night at the 12th District so that the kids can actually meet and greet police officers rather than to make it better for community. I'm saying that wrong. Better communications, yes, we'll go with that. Because what happens is the officers get complacent. They're in the cars all day for 8 hours. They go to a job that the radio gives us, and we go to another job. They just implemented bring back the foot beats. The best thing about the foot beats is they're actually walking so that they can meet and greet everyone that's walking in the stores in your community, so you get to know their faces and get to know one another. You can know when Miss Johnson's not smiling today. She always smiles when something's wrong. Let me just check, make sure she's okay. So I was a foot beat for 7 years, and I enjoyed it because I got to meet the block captains and everyone on the block grew up with the kids. And I know I'm talking too much, ain't I? But I'm gonna wrap this up real quick because I know you got 1,000 more questions for me.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, let's go back to the audience because we have a question that I would like the audience to direct to the police officers. We know that not all police officers are inherently bad people, but the police force, that institution that sees many of us as larger, scarier, and prone to criminality, what talk needs to occur for them?
Oh boy, I'm ready to pass the mic to you. My name is Muhammad Shakur. I'm the executive director of a program called Father's Heart and Legacy. I've worked with fathers for probably the last 20 years. And it is a comment that I want to say about the talk, because I feel that we have to say some things about the talk before we leave so people know what they're doing. Because I didn't have to talk either. In reference to the question, if I'm understanding it right, I have police officers that are friends too.
I think what's important when we're talking to police officers is to not assume that their perspective in dealing with people is a correct perspective. But a lot of us do. We think that they know what to do. And many of them do not know what to do. A lot of my friends, I got one friend, he's 300 pounds. And he a cop. He can barely fit in his shirt. And he sat in one of my groups, and his perspective about how to deal with people was the most toxic perspective that I had ever met in my life. And it wasn't because he was a cop. It was because it was his personality. So I think that one of the things that when I have conversations, and I've done events where we've conversated with police and we've had interaction and people got really emotional and said things that was on their heart but wasn't necessarily important, is this one point about that, then I just want to say another point, is that we need to not assume that they know what they're doing. Just because they get training. And I heard the brother say, most police officers are well trained in police policies and what to do. What they're not very good in is managing themselves. This is what we've learned. They're not very good in managing themselves. You got to consider people's backgrounds. Some people come from a background where our people's skin color is not very favorable to their upbringing. And they've had to endure years of hearing their daddy say, we don't like them Negroes, or we don't like Hispanics, or whatever. Likewise, with my buddy that was 300 pounds and black, he grew up with a mother that did not like men. So she constantly kept feeding him that. So when he met up with brothers, that's what brothers got. So I think that's the one point. What I want to go, if I can, 30 seconds, is as important is my son got murdered when he was 20. He was 20 years old, he got shot 7 times. He dead in the street, we buried him, okay. I think with the talk, you gotta remember as a parent, this one thing here. You gotta monitor yourself before you have the talk. Why? So you don't give your children an angry, toxic message that they're supposed to live when they're not around you. And for me, my wife always had me monitor myself that I don't give my children, because this was my son, he would have been 32 by now. However, though, I got younger children now. And my son is 13, and he on Chad's kind of mission with the height and the weight. And then I got another son that's brilliant, that's 9. And then I got a daughter that goes to a predominantly white school in Upper Dublin, faced more racism than I can ever imagine. And then my wife tells me, be careful you don't give them your experience that's unresolved and angry, and you got them running around acting like you 20 years ago with bad policies and bad character. Be careful of that, because the talk is going to depend on who you are. It's going to depend less about what you think you should do in front of police. You're going to give them your personality. You got to make sure it's right. So my wife always said, don't give them the angry father that just lost a son and you want to knock cats' heads off. And plus, I'm a savage. I done had guns before. I done tried to shoot people. I got all that in me. That's where I come from. I come from that too. And I'm a different person. I've been clean for 28 years and all that whole thing. The second thing you want to do when you're having this talk is be realistic about police officers. No, they're not all bad. And they have a very dangerous job to do. How do I know that? Because I was one of those people that carried a gun that made it dangerous for their ass. That's how I know. So don't be unrealistic and saying all cops is bad and all that kind of stuff like that. You're feeding them a bad sell of goods if you do that. Lastly, you don't want to make them a coward, because cowards want to prove themselves. So I don't tell my children, my sons in particular, that you need to start proving yourself because of who you think you are. You don't need to prove yourself to nobody. Stand in your own truth and your own integrity. And most of all, be controlled. Be controlled. Why? Because they cops? No, be controlled because that's what the hell we teach you to be. That's more important than giving these cats over here, I love them, hate them, whatever, but giving them a position they don't deserve. They don't deserve that kind of power. So don't give them that kind of power.
Let's have it up for the brother. We're going to go ahead and bring Brother Gabe up and conclude. But before the night ends, we need to collect your surveys. But also, if you sat next to someone that you didn't know, introduce yourself to that person. Maybe build a coalition by exchanging business cards and phone numbers. We didn't get to everything that we wanted to do, but to Jamie's point, we have your information because we think that from a strengths-based perspective, one of the most advantageous things is for us to follow this up. Let me keep your attention for a second. Follow this up with a workshop, right? So please make sure that you, one, turn in your surveys, two, that you give us your information. I think we had a sign-in sheet. Make sure that it's legible on the way out if you can, because we do want to follow this up with a workshop. And as I hand it to Gabe, once again, meet each other, shake a hand, hug a neck if a person is okay with you hugging them, but pass out some information so that you can get to know one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chad. Give it up for Chad, y'all. Again, facilitators. Just a couple quick things. Tonight may have been challenging for somebody in the room and may have been triggering for somebody in the room. We do have, if you can raise your hand, please. If you have any questions or thoughts or ideas or need to talk to somebody, we have Dan here in the corner. Please come see them and you'll be able to kind of have a talk if you need it. If there's somebody in the room that needs just some more information or talk. A couple things also, please, as you can see to my right, your left, take all the snacks on your way out, all right, and the water. But on a more serious note, you know, one of the things that I always share is that what precipitated this talk, and I want to have Mark Harrell come up. Mark, if you come up please with me. Whenever I go to schools and I speak in assemblies, I usually ask the question, how many of y'all have had a negative experience with the police? I'd say usually about half the hands go up, boys and girls. I then ask, how many of y'all have actually been brutalized by the police in any capacity? I'd say about a third of the hands go up. I ask the question, how many of y'all actually have been shot at by the police? I'd say usually about a few hands go up. And then I'll say, how many of y'all actually know somebody that got killed by the police? And there's usually also a few hands that go up. And so I really want to leave you not with a sense of doom and gloom, but certainly with as Chad said earlier, some of the reality that some of our parents and guardians are dealing with, and some of the trauma as well that our communities are dealing with. From a perspective of solution, we always say a couple things as far as towards the talk and to equip. Oftentimes people say, well, hey, Mr. Gabe, I was in an incident, I didn't know what to do. I always say this, first of all, if you want to get the vehicle number first and foremost, because you may not be close enough to get the officer's badge number, but you can always get the officer's car number, which usually is more visible and is bigger in sight and in plain view if you stop, out in the street or actually out in the community. Look for the car number because you might not be close enough to get the badge number. And two, always be sure to file a complaint that week, if not the next day, if not the same night. Oftentimes, if something happens, we'll go home, we'll tweet about it, we'll post about it on Facebook, but we won't do anything else further, and it's very, very important from a strength perspective to keep a paper trail, all right? So the folks in IA, Internal Affairs, can do their job and take care of those officers when they see a paper trail of officers who have negligence and a pattern of history of negligence as well. So keep that in mind as well. And then thirdly, I'll say this, if you need any questions or concerns about knowing your rights or, about the police, you can come to me as well. I have some folks who do trainings about that as well. That will also be a part of the training that we provide later on this spring, because it's very important to equip not only our sons and daughters, but also our parents and guardians as well around this question, because it's very, very, very important. I want to close out by speaking to and providing a talk by my good friend and community advocate, Mark Harrell, who is certainly somebody who we value here in Southwest Philadelphia.
Good evening. I'm going to be brief because I know everybody's going to get out of here. I'm the Nat Corder and community organizer here at Southwest CDC, so I welcome you all to Southwest CDC. I just want to share a couple of brief things with you. Because this is always asked, what is that on the back wall? That is, you heard of the broken window syndrome? If you go in the community, you see broken windows, that contributes to blight and crime and that sort of thing. That project, a group of students at Philadelphia University, architect students, Hines Wildlife Refuge in Audubon, PA, commissioned this. The students panned out throughout Southwest Philadelphia and asked neighbors and residents in the community, what would you like to see done with the vacant lots in your community? The vacant lots that are contributing to crime and blight. What you see on the wall came out of those conversations. So we're in the process now of looking at how we can bring these projects into fruition. So eventually we're looking at having a roundtable discussion here with the philanthropic community in Philadelphia to look at this, and those are all actual vacant lots where the neighbors said, this is what we'd like to see done. So that's what that is. The other thing, I'm going to commend those of you who brought your sons, because that's what this is about. My son is 22, but why should I feel more comfortable? Because he moved to Virginia, the home of his maternal grandfather in Roanoke, Virginia, and I sleep better at night that he's down there, and I miss him, but he's not in Philadelphia, and I didn't sleep as well, thinking about my son every night in the streets that we have to navigate. So I commend all of you who brought your sons, because that's power. The other thing is, Officer Mitchell wanted to make sure you had his number. It's 215-686-3122. So make sure you connect with him. One thing I want to share is if you really want to get the pulse of what young people in our city think about crime, police, each other, violence. For about 12 years, I was the executive director of Men United for a Better Philadelphia. Men United for a Better Philadelphia is an organization that started in January 2002, where men just said, if anything is going to happen with this violence on the street, men have to stand up. So the year before we started, I think the homicide rate was 500. The majority of those men were African-American men. So January 2nd, we set out to hit the streets, and for the next 12 years, that's what we did. That next year, the homicide rate went down to 217. People can change what our streets are going through right now, because all of the perpetrators are being harbored and fed and clothed by people who allow them to live and eat and drink in our homes. The other thing is, if you want to really get a sense of where the young people are, my nephew, who I used to bring out with my nephew and my sons to different events with Men United for a Better Philadelphia, 2 years ago, my nephew started an Instagram page called No Gun Zone. In 2 years, they're now over 100,000 followers on No Gun Zone, an Instagram page. And young people now say they don't even watch the news. They don't even read the newspaper. When they wake up in the morning, they go to No Gun Zone to find out what happened on the street the night before. It's a compelling story of each incident that people share on No Gun Zone. You wouldn't believe there's 500, 700, 600, sometimes 800 comments about what's going on in our streets. So if you want to get a sense of where our young people are, go to No Gun Zone on Instagram. My nephew started this page because they said, how can we get young people to understand that young people can do something about violence as well? So to get a first-hand account of how our young people think about what's going on in the street, go to No Gun Zone, and then when you read the comments, sometimes it's a sad commentary on where the mental status of our young people are right now. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces in here tonight. Me and Edwin, we go back. We actually organized work with women organized against rape. There was a whole contingency of men that partnered with women organized against rape. The last time I seen this young man was at the Men United for a Better Philadelphia 5th anniversary. We had his table set up at our event. Me and Lee would go back to the Enterprise days, and look, it's just familiar faces all throughout. Take this message tonight, share it with some young people, not just the sons, but the daughters as well. Again, thank you, and welcome to Southwest Philadelphia and Southwest CDC.
I want to thank Mark on